Are we ready to get started? Yeah, I apologize for my absence. Many of you know Charles C., who's been involved in community reentry for many, many years, and he was honored at a luncheon, and he's been a longtime friend, and I've worked with him on a number of projects, and I had to show up, and I just sort of made a cameo appearance. I understand that the items D, E, F, and G have been read, and we're now ready for questions. So I don't know which way you're going to start with questions. Mr. Schran?
Thank you. Mr. Applebaum, on your model, you showed your model as a 2020 model with at that point, I assume the assumptions were a 70% occupancy and an $182 room rate. What's your model look like from 2016 to 2020? Because you're at a 50% occupancy and $150 room rate. I assume it's not making money. It's not dropping the money to the bottom line in those years.
Actually, I'm doing this from memory because I should have brought, and I don't have the sheet in front of me. Let me do this from memory.
Yeah, that's close enough. I mean, Kentucky went just fine.
Essentially, what happens is it ramps up from 50% to, I think it's actually 70% I think it gets up to 70% in 2019. What it shows is that in 2019, it shows that we make debt service. In 2019, the priority payment is $8 million, and it shows that we make it. It actually shows that we make money in 2019. It shows that we make $500,000 in 2019. From 2016 and the stub year in 16.
16, 17, and 18, you're right.
Yeah, but what happens there is we don't lose money at all, because keep in mind what happens there is our obligation to pay debt service, and Tim's not here, but that also ramps up consistent with the revenues, and their fees don't kick in. So it's all built, the ramp-up period has all been designed to meet our revenue needs and to meet the fees. So it's all balanced until then. But even in 2019, we're actually making money.
Okay, I don't know if I don't know if my colleagues were picking up on that, but if that's a big distinction that in year 2020, where we're making money, we're at a $9 million debt service. But as we go through that, it is not $9 million in 16, 17, and 18. It ramps on up.
It ramps up, but it's
as a scale. So that's how we get to get the numbers to work in those years.
Right.
So
but that's part of the model.
Okay. I was just curious as to what happened for the 4 intervening years, because I don't want to. We don't want to see all over the papers that 16, 17, 18, 19 we're losing our shirt. Breaking even to get to 19 is fine.
I will send out. I will send out to council the spreadsheet. I'll show you the complete pro forma for every year. Okay. And you can look at this 1 year. If you understand this 1 year, because it's hard to read. If you understand this one, you'll be able to read the whole thing.
Okay. The Hilton earns credits if they hit a certain target, but it doesn't get paid if we don't have the cash. Is what you indicated.
Yes.
Is there a rollover or carryover that if they hit it, that we still are obligated to make those payments even if we don't have the cash in the future years?
You can have 2 conditions. You could have earned or unearned, and you could have the cash or not have the cash. If it's unearned, they never get it.
Right.
If it's earned but you don't have the cash, if in the following year you have the surplus, you pay it.
Okay, so how many years can they roll it over? Because we then have to. I know Mr. Greenspan will be asking about it, because we'll be carrying it on our books as an earned revenue that we obligated to pay Hilton in subsequent years if we start making money.
Till termination, but on the other hand, if you never have the cash, you never pay it.
Yeah, but if we don't pay it for 3, 4, 5 years, and that's just building, it doesn't go. It's not a use it or lose it type thing after 2 years.
If they earn it, but if our revenues fall short, it does accrue.
Forever.
For the term of the.
Yeah, forever until we start making money. So
once again, when you see the projections, I think you'll be comfortable that won't occur. But you'll look at the pro forma.
And then the last one was on the Geis with our county office building, they're obligated to pay into a capital reserve fund that we build in, that we wrote our contracts. Are we obligated to pay into a capital reserve fund on this for purposes of keeping Hilton
Yes,
happy?
yes.
Okay, all right,
But once again, it's built into the pro forma.
okay.
And we
Thank
have
you.
negotiated what that amount is, and we've also negotiated how that comes out of the pro forma.
Well, you had shown some of that money dropping to the bottom line, but if all of a sudden we need to move that up to cover a capital reserve fund, we're obligated to pay that.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's our building.
Yeah, I understand it's our building, but if Hilton's committed to a 15-year lease.
No, yeah, Hilton will not agree to a 15-year lease if we don't agree to
To a mandatory-
to a mandatory capital repair fund.
Thank you.
That's correct.
All right, Mr. Greenspan, and we do have someone that has to leave by 1:30 on the Welcome House, so we need to kind of move this along, or,
Very, very quick, just to follow up to Mr. Schron's question, the money that carries over, and I might need Mr. Parks to answer, but as we are liable for that, might that be considered a draw on our reserves as we list our bond guarantee? I don't know, Mr. Parks, do you know the answer to that? If we don't have the money for 3 years and that money keeps accruing, that we have that liability, is that reported as a draw on our reserves?
That would, Councilman Greenspan, that would appear in that section of contingency
Right.
payments. If you look at the budget, you know where down below it shows the potential obligations. That's where that would show up in the budget.
Okay, and based on not even looking at 2016, we're getting close to the, okay, never mind, I won't go there with that. Okay, I just wanted to know where it would go. Just a question, Mr. Applebaum, on the $10 million resolution. Included in there is the, basically greenfielding of the current administration site, correct? Tear down and
Yes.
remediation and everything.
Yes.
How much of the 10 million is that cost? Because I was under the assumption it was 100% of what
No.
we're doing here, but it's not.
It's
There are
not.
other services.
The issue is this, the final step, when you say greenfield,
Right.
the final piece of it, which is the mass, obviously the abatement is, obviously the demolition is. Then the next step is you could have done one of a couple things. To make it a greenfield site, you could have then restored a pad. Obviously, what we are doing is, as part of this, is we are starting our mass excavation. So if it was a greenfield site, in all honesty, you wouldn't be excavating, you wouldn't be putting up the sheeting and shoring until, and I know what you're getting at. If you had a developer coming next, hypothetically,
Right.
you
You're
wouldn't
reading
do,
my
you,
mind.
you wouldn't do the sheeting and shoring until the developer was ready to go. So I can give you an estimate of it. It's probably in the vicinity of the part of it that you would do anyway for a greenfield site, probably in the $5 million range. The part of it that is part of developing the hotel, and then that's probably more than that. It's probably because you still would do something, so maybe $6 million range. The part of it that is pure, because the pre-construction services are for the hotel, and then the sheeting and shoring and the excavation, maybe $3 million would be not what you might want to buy right now, if that's a direct answer to your question.
Great, and I'll just make one statement for brevity, and my colleagues know my position on the whole hotel project. Not that I don't believe there should be one there. I believe there should be. I just don't believe we should be in the business. I will be supporting this resolution, 0234, because it includes what I believe we should be doing anyhow, is remediating the soil and getting the pad ready for development. But I will not be supporting the rest of them, and it's at no disrespect or slight in any way of the capability of these organizations to provide those services, just merely my belief that the county shouldn't be in the hotel business. So I just want to make that statement. You all have seen my documentation, so I won't be addressing this anymore.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Brady, but we do have a problem with the Welcome House folks, so I don't know if we should delay this or. Go ahead.
We'll come back to this.
Why don't we do, can we do that and go let them welcome out? Because I know, I guess somebody has to leave at 1:35, and you've been here all day anyway.
I'm at your disposal.
Okay, sit down.
Because it will look silly.
Tick, tick, tick on the clock. Can we go back then to his item on Welcome House, the archive 0169, has that been read?
No.
I don't think you're making.
Resolution number 2013-0169, a resolution making an award on requisition number 24534 to Welcome House Incorporated in the amount of $650,000 for sale of the County Archives building, authorizing a lease for said building in the amount of $12 for a 12-month period commencing on the closing date of said sale, authorizing the county executive to take all necessary actions and to execute all documents necessary to consummate the contemplated transactions, and authorizing the Director of Public Works to administer the project, and declaring necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Couldn't come forward? Anyone?
Thank you. At your permission, Bonnie Tewan, Director of Public Works, I'd like Tony Thomas from Welcome House to say a few words, if that's possible.
All right, Mr. Thomas?
Members of council, I also want to invite up Bill Merriman with me, who's a block club leader in the area where the archives building is located. So he'll be joining me today. I'm going to.
We already heard from him.
My name's Tony Thomas, Executive Director of Welcome House. Bill Merriman, who's the chairman of the Franklin Clinton Block Club. I've got a letter here that I'm going to pass out to council, if I can ask the assistant clerk to do that. This is a letter from Bill Merriman to all of you, and some of you may have gotten it, some may not. So. I'm going to be very quick and very brief. I want to at least address the council today that there were 3 public comments on the Welcome House proposal earlier. 2 were in favor, 1 was essentially against it. The person that was here against that proposal, who's not here right now, said that there was a community meeting held on September 23rd. Councilwoman Conwell was in attendance of that. And there were approximately 100, 125 people in attendance at that large community meeting about the archives project. Your sale of that property to Welcome House, so the Welcome House would turn it into an apartment building for people with developmental disabilities. That was the basis of the proposal. We still contend that is the basis of the proposal. I did not hear in that meeting an overwhelming dissatisfaction from the community about our proposal. I heard just the opposite. I heard good questions. I heard comments from the community. And I've been traveling throughout the community to speak to members and different block clubs, and I have a list of those with you now, and I'll ask the assistant clerk if she wouldn't mind passing this out. These are the last 2 pieces of documentation you'll get about it.
I'm ready whenever you are. I'm ready.
But what you have here is a list of the meetings that we've attended in Ohio City, and we've got a tremendous amount of response, positive response. And when Mr. Merriman held his block club meeting, and I presented to the block club that we would belong to in Ohio City, there were about 40 to 45 people in attendance at that particular block club. And I want to represent the one person, I want to represent to all of you the one person who voted against it in his block club. So you had 40 or 45 people voting for it, 1 against it. And what she said was that she preferred to see more market rate housing within Ohio City. That was her comment. And that has been a constant theme of what I've heard from people that are against this particular project going into Ohio City. But what you have in Mr. Merriman's letter are clear examples of market rate housing going into Ohio City. There's nothing that's stopping market rate housing at $1,500 a month to going into Ohio City right now. Development is taking off within Ohio City. Each and every week something new is happening. This particular project is not market rate housing. It's housing for people with developmental disabilities. And we propose to work with you to make that happen. We propose to protect your archival records so that they're moved to a suitable location. And we'll work with you on both the sale, purchase, and renovation of the building as it moves forward. I look forward to the positive vote from the council.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Questions?
This is not a question. I probably, and I think I'm certainly, definitely live closer to this location than anyone else does on the council. The Geographically, this is in Councilwoman Conwell's district. But I, along with, and I'm the only person here, but I have lived on the west side for many, many years. And I'm not an expert on a lot of things, but I know a lot about Cleveland City Hall. I know a lot about being a Cleveland City councilman as Councilman Miller. And I'm not opposed to this project. But there has to be, in my opinion, a clear signal and not something, there has to be communication from the councilman of this ward precisely where he stands. The election is over. He's been given a mandate for the next 4 years. And these are the kinds of decisions that in the culture and history of the ward system in Cleveland, which we have, whether we like it or maybe some people don't. And that, within that system, this is the call of the councilman. And I'm not, even though I'm not opposed to this project, and I have friends because I've lived here for a long time that are on both sides of this, because we have some former council people on the other side of this. But they're not the councilman right now. And what matters to me is what the councilman who was just reelected 2 days ago has to say about this. And while I will be willing to be for this project, I will not vote for this project until there is an absolute bright green light by the councilman who was elected by the people of your community to represent them and, in my opinion, make the final call on these kinds of decisions, not this body.
I believe there also is a substitute resolution on this, and my concern is, first of all, that we make sure that we have the 2-year lease back so that we can make arrangements to have the materials in the archives moved. We also, this is all contingent on the Board of Zoning Appeals, because if they don't rule, then we're out. And then I believe there's also another community meeting or something that I know Councilman Conwell is very interested in.
She's chairing a community meeting
Right.
on November
So
19th.
I think everybody can, I'm prepared to move to vote this out of the committee, but then there's these other contingencies, and then we
those are
can make a
fine.
decision. So to move it out of the committee, we don't make a final decision today, but we can make it out of the committee, can move it out of the committee, then people can decide at the next meeting. And like I said, my concerns are 3 things that I mentioned.
Right. And we're concerned about the issue that Councilman Brady brought up as well. So.
Yes.
One question. Last time that you guys were here, I believe there was a timing issue with getting your financing, and that if it didn't happen, financing would expire. Where's the financing situation?
Well, we missed a couple deadlines with regard to financing for this year, for 2013, and Councilman Greenspan, we plan to apply for those next year.
So you don't currently have financing?
We have financing to purchase the building from you. That is in place.
But you don't have financing to complete the project?
Financing to do the renovation and rehabilitation those are other grants and other sources that we would look at in the year 2014, and feel very confident we're in line with those.
Well, if I can ask a question, Director Tewan, I'm not aware of us ever moving forward with a project where the financing to complete the project's been in jeopardy or is not in place. Is that a factual statement?
Excuse me, I would not say that the financing is in jeopardy.
But we don't have, it's not in place right now.
Once you sign a purchase agreement, it will be in place. We will have 90 days to close on it at that point. Financing will be in place by that time.
Yeah, and I would say in most cases that financing can't be in place if you don't own the property. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, because we don't want to sell somebody a property and then it's still an eyesore or whatever.
Right. Essentially, yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Schrein?
But the financing, to Ms. Tewan, your comment that the financing is not, the check hasn't been written, but clearly the commitment of, I would not go down that path to build a house if I didn't not only control the site, but also have the ability to finance it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but the commitment letter would already be in place for both components. We're only talking about right now, we only have a commitment letter, it sounds like, for the raw land. For any of the renovation is not, the commitment letter is still.
Absolutely, yes.
Is not in place. So that's the point that I think Mr. Greenspan was pointing out. And there was a second question about whatever's going to happen with the second building.
Right.
There was no discussion about whether or not that
Second
was...
building, we were looking for another nonprofit entity to join with us in another project.
Okay, and so we're only talking about half of the project is going to be completed, even in, based on what you're proposing.
The total project will be renovated.
Right.
So really what we'd be looking for is financing for renovation for the entire building. And the second building, the smaller building of the two, Councilman Schron, we cannot use for housing, but we can use for office building for another nonprofit or another entity as
Okay,
well.
but there's not a plan for it?
Not currently, not currently.
So what was said earlier in his response when he took the podium, that you don't have the entire project planned for at this moment in time?
But he didn't either, actually, in his
Because
proposal.
he did say, he alluded that he did. He said he had them both covered.
He did not,
Oh,
actually.
okay, unless I understand
mean,
correct.
he was planning to put a coffee shop in the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his proposal. He was planning to essentially take the other side of the building and put a coffee shop in it, but that was an unproven theory
Okay.
at that point. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Mr. Rogers?
You made mention of it regarding the zoning, and I'm wondering where we are as far as that timeline and when the decision is going to be made.
Mr. Rogers, that's November 18th. That's a Monday morning Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. And we had a meeting in August with them. They asked us to go back out and get the community input. You have a copy of what we went out to get the community input on. And we plan to take that back on November 18th in the morning to meet with Board of Zoning Appeals and seek their approval on a zoning change.
So this wouldn't come back before us until after
It would be my decision to put it on the agenda, and I won't put it on the agenda till all these things are checked off.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Board of Zoning Appeals would have to be approved. Councilman has to come forward with his approval. 2-year lease for your records to stay there essentially for 2 years. So those would be the contingencies.
Miller?
Seeing that that the financing for the renovations is not yet in place and they're no longer under this time constraint. I'm not sure why we don't just hold this in committee until after the Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. And at that point, the councilman almost always has to come forward and testify before the Board of Zoning Appeals. We'll get a clear statement from the council person there, and then we can see where we are.
Well, the thing is, if we've had all the discussion today and we got all the information, then we can move it on and, you can vote your conscience up or down, or we don't have to put it on the agenda. So I just assume get it out of the committee. And we can't, I won't put it on the agenda until we have the necessary things. It'll just tie us up longer to have to bring it back to committee. And we are coming up on the end of the year with a limited number of meetings. I think we have our last meeting December 10th.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So you would have a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting on November 18th. We would seek approval at that point, and that would be meeting that first contingency.
And if you don't get that approval, then it's dead in the water anyway.
Yeah, so end of November? Yeah. Yeah, the end of November council meeting sounds a lot more logical to come back to you for final approval.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
I'm willing to support moving this along, but the councilman and the former councilman is correct. Joe Simperman will be at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I would like to hear from him sooner.
Yeah.
But that will be the day when he will definitely either support or not support this project. And I will follow his lead as the person who's been elected by the people of that community.
Our attorney to speak to that one.
If I may, Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Billington.
My name is Glenn Billington. I'm the attorney for Welcome House. I have had extensive experience with the Fair Housing Act implications of what you've just said. And I think you might want to consider counsel from your own law department as to whether public opposition expressed through its councilman alone is grounds to vacate what you've already decided.
I'll make my decision as I see fit, and I will not be intimidated by a bunch of crap like that. Now, I am not against this project, but do not tell me how I go about making this decision. You know, I am very sensitive to the fact that when we have a ward system in Cleveland where people elect councilmatic representation, and that is the way it works. And don't tell me how to make a decision. That's not a good way
I'm not telling you how to make
to
the
convince
decision.
me.
I'm asking you to be advised, that's all.
Well, we thank you for your advice, and we make our decisions the way we make them, so.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I still have a lot of questions about this project, and I also think that the market rate housing proposal perhaps hasn't gotten the consideration it deserves, and just because they didn't go forward on a thing or two in 2009 when the economy was a lot different than it was today, I'm not sure we should hold that against them. But I'm willing to defer to your recommendation as to what we do today
Well,
and to
like I said, we can
to,
still have an
pass it out.
opportunity. I believe your point is well taken, that there may be some other sides to the story, but they can certainly bring those back to, to council at the time of the hearing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm willing to support you today.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, so then we call them for a vote to vote this out of committee. We need a
Madam
motion?
Chair, do we need to introduce the proposed substitute first?
Yeah, and the substitute involves the conditions that I talked about, the 2-year lease back. Is that the only thing in the substitute?
The substitute, Madam President, changes the lease back from 12 months to 24 months and makes any closing contingent on the developer getting all the zoning approvals that they need to get from Cleveland.
Okay.
That we won't close unless all the zoning that needs to happen from Cleveland is in place.
Okay, I move the adoption of the substitute resolution.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Then we'll go forward with the substitute resolution. And is there any more discussion on this? If not, I'll make a motion to move the substitute resolution out of committee and pass it on to the regular agenda. Seconded by Mr. Gallagher. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of moving this to the regular agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and we will determine when we'll put this on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Applebaum? I've got to ask this. Excuse me, sir. Why do I know you? Where do you work? You. Yeah.
It's Santa Claus. I used to run the bookstore by the West Side Market.
There's, okay, thank you. All right.
That's right.
It's going to drive me crazy if I couldn't. Okay, all right, go back. You're back on.
What if he said something like he ran a porno shop or something like that? What would you have done?
You know what? Honestly, books kept coming to my mind, but I couldn't remember. Books were there, but I knew he wasn't one of my defendants. I knew that.
Okay. It's just,
That would have been dangerous.
That would have been dangerous.
It's a dangerous question.
You sentenced me to 40 years.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be waiting out by your car.
Okay, you're back.
So I think I was answering questions.
You're the last man standing here.
Madam President?
Yes.
Mr. Applebaum, regarding the hotel project, am I correct that if I were an outside business person looking to do something similar, and I looked at this project, and I incorporated the fact that we're putting $90 million or more of other financing into this project. If I took that into consideration, the project on a whole would not be profitable. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Just want to be clear about that.
Yes.
My other question is on the Cooper Carey project. Are you planning to submit us an amendment for the 12th that would change the number from the 6.5 million to the actual number that we come up with?
The contract that you will have, you'll have the actual contract on Tuesday, which will have the actual schedule. There'll be a schedule, an exhibit that's incorporated into the contract that actually has the actual numbers for each individual consultant. So on Tuesday, you'll have, that contract will have the actual final number. And it will be about $1 million less than the resolution.
And Madam President, just when we drafted the we can amend the resolution if need be. When we drafted the resolution, because we were not aware of the final number, exactly what it was going to be, we drafted the resolution in a way to say, you know, this is the absolute cap that you can exceed, but go out and negotiate what you can negotiate, and if the total number is below that, that's okay. Within the current draft of the resolution, it allows the contract to be at a lower number, but we can, I mean, if we have the exact number before then, we can absolutely fix it. That's not an issue.
I think for clear communication and transparency that we should amend the resolution at that time.
What I would be happy to do, and right now we're just in the, like I say, we're in the process of making these last tweaks. And by the way, they affect both contracts, because what happens is it's the question of an engineering consultant. Some of his work is under the architect of record under the Turner contract, some is under the Cooper Carey contract. So it's sort of like if you push a little this way, you're taking a little this way. We will have for you, for each of those contracts, aside from whatever we do with the resolution, I'll prepare a sheet that you will have that actually shows the precise final numbers that are within the resolution, but it'll show you exactly what they are within the contract, if that'll be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Just one.
Roger, sorry.
May seem minor, but you said something that sparked my interest regarding furniture. And I know that a lot of times with hotels, they have their own kind of signature brand of furniture and bedding and things like that. We actually do the purchase of the furniture. Is it with obviously it's with their recommendation, or is it the type of furniture that's easily transferable? Or are there any unique features to the type of furniture that comes with?
Good question. Let me answer it this way. First of all, and this is, you'll see this in the details, we actually have retained, we went through a selection process. Well, let me take that back. Our design professionals went through a process that we attended to select the interior designer. And so there is an interior designer. We'll make once again, you'll hear more about this on Tuesday, but we'll make a presentation of that. So Hilton has approved of the interior designer. So we have an interior designer who is we're very excited about who this firm is, this company is, and they'll be doing some unique things, you know, Cleveland-oriented things in the building. And this relates not just with respect to interior design, it relates to style of furniture and all of that. Hilton, it has to meet Hilton standards, but there's the ability to, you know, design within Hilton standards. What then happens is, so we create the design. With respect to procurement, Hilton will actually compete with another procurement agent to be the procuring agent. Hilton, in fact, it's right in their document, they will propose to be the agent for procuring furniture, and unless I'm mistaken, they charge 4%, a 4% fee to do that and to run that procurement. There's others in the industry that also procure furniture for major hotel projects, and frankly, there's reasons to do it both ways. And this will be once again, a competitive process. Hilton will compete with an independent procurement agent. We'll select one, and that entity will procure. And that's how that works. But the design, it's not like Hilton doesn't dictate that. Hilton has an approval right, but it's really it's unique to the property.
All right, any other questions? Great. We've had each one of the items, 234, 236, 237, 240, read into the record, and there's been discussions on them. So I assume that we would vote each one of these on to move to the regular agenda.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, I'm prepared to advocate moving these onto the council agenda. I know that this is a process that is really moving at warp speed. I can't say that, you know, I'm entirely comfortable with speed and the fact that we're, you know, coincidentally dealing with this at the same time as other issues, obviously mostly the budget itself. But it's, what we've learned is unquestionably the convention center cannot be successful without this hotel, and that this hotel, most of us believe, cannot be financed and move forward outside of, very far outside of the structure that's being proposed. So I'm willing to move forward, and I don't think that we can fail, but we certainly are moving awfully quickly. So I would be willing, you know, I'm willing to move these resolutions forward. What I would say is that there is an important issue that I want to discuss, not today, but very soon, and that's the issue of governance. The councilman has shown, the Councilman Greenspan has voiced his concern over the nature of the ownership of this project, and so I think that needs to be, you know, aired, and this quasi-public, however you want to define it, governing process be better understood, and the council's role in it be better understood, because the county is taking on a lot of responsibility here, and the council needs to be fully informed and well aware of it. But I do not want to get into an hour discussion about that right now. So if there's a readiness among the council to call it a day, you know, I'll be ready at that time to move these resolutions forward to the.
Can I offer just one
Well,
clarification?
let's see, do we have a second?
Well, I haven't actually
Okay.
made a,
All right, go ahead, make your comment.
motion.
I just want to point out, and by the way, I completely agree with Councilman Brady that we do have to spend some time on the governance issue, but I do want to make clear at this point in time, the governance entity at this time only relates to the convention center. We have not proposed that, you know, right now this is this hotel project, the only governance entity involved with the hotel project right now is county council. Now, I realize that we've had the conversation that the governance entity of the what we do in the convention center might relate to this, because there might be a determination as to whether that entity does ultimately have governance of the hotel, but we can move forward with the hotel project itself without ever being involved with that governance. So I just want to make that clear.
Madam Chairperson, I appreciate the precision, but these are semantical differences in my mind. Although, you know, we can only take one foot, put one foot in front of the other. So
you are correct.
Looking forward to the fact that we're going to be discussing the governance of a hotel convention center. I'm just saying we need to be about the council having a better understanding of that as soon as possible.
I think that's fair, and I hope we can do that quickly. Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I move that we favorably refer Resolution 2013-0234 to the full council with consideration for passage under second reading, suspension at the next meeting.
I guess then I'll second it.
Okay.
The first one.
Are you in the discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. You're on a roll, Miller.
Okay. I'll move that we favorably refer Resolution 2013-0236 to the full council favorably with consideration for passage under second reading, suspension.
Somebody else want to second it?
All right. Seconded by Mr. Jemana. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
No,
Yeah. Oh, okay, no, Mr. Greenspan is voting no.
that's K-N-O-W. That's how you spell it.
Okay.
And I move that we favorably refer Resolution 2013-0237 to the full council with recommendation for passage under second reading suspension.
Seconded by Mr. Gallagher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And Mr. Miller? And no for Mr. Greenspan.
And finally, I move that we refer Resolution 2013-0240 favorably to the full council for consideration for passage under second reading suspension at the next meeting.
Ready to ring on.
Seconded by Ms. Simon. All right, any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And no, Mr. Greenspan is voting no.
No offense.
All right, we've been here since 9 o'clock in the morning, now 2 o'clock. I did go out and have lunch, so I know the rest of you guys are hungry.
I'll stay for that.
Any other miscellaneous business? Any other public comment unrelated to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, if not, we stand adjourned.